Hi, this is Chad with Winning Tennis, and today I want to make a video on the common threads of the second serve. So let's get right into it and see what's going on with the second serve. Now, I just wanted to point out that I made a 20-minute video on this and I didn't record the screen, so I'm doing it over, okay? That sucks. All right, so here we go again. At least I had a rehearsal. Now, this is Novak Djokovic, and this is his second serve. And Djokovic was the #1 player for a couple of years in a row, and he has an excellent second serve. And by watching the pros, we can learn what they're doing so we can do it in our game. All right. One thing I want to point out real quickly is the feet. Notice, I said that word notice, right? Someone said I said notice too much, so I'm trying to use other words. Okay, see, look, here. Okay, his feet, his rear foot is parallel to the baseline. His front foot is at a 45-degree angle. Now he just picked up his heel because he's transferring his weight to the back foot right now. So he's gonna, usually when you start serving, you want to have your weight on the front part of your foot, on the front foot, and then transfer it to the back foot and then come forward, a la Pete Sampras. All right, so he completes his toss, and typically you're gonna release the ball. I made a video on this with Roger Federer's serve analysis. You're going to release the ball about head height, and we can see that's the case for Djokovic as well. He releases the ball right around his head. Now look at his racket. His racket is now at a 6 o'clock position. If you want to think of his elbow as a clock, as the middle of the clock, I should say, his racket would be in the 6 o'clock position. Now, as that ball goes up, he's going to not drop his hand like a lot of club players. He's going to keep that arm perfectly straight above his head. And he's going to look. His eyes will never deviate. They're going to continue to look up at the ball until he strikes the ball. That is really important as well. I also want to point out, look at his racket. It's now in the 3 o'clock position. So the racket is going counterclockwise. It started at 6, and now it's at 3. Now, from this point, it looks like he's bending his back, and sometimes you could watch players like Andy Murray, and it really looks like they're arching their back. They're not really arching their back. What they're doing is they're bending their knees. And when you bend your knees at a 90-degree angle, you're going to get that look like it looks like you're arching your back, but it's really not. And he's doing that because he wants to be able to brush on the ball. So by getting his head over his feet, he'll be able to do it better. He'll be able to put more spin on the ball. Now, so the racket went from a 3 o'clock position into the 12 o'clock position right there. So that is the classic power position for the first and second serve. His elbow is still primarily almost in the same position. It moved a little bit here. And notice that his left hand is still straight up. And he's doing a great job of it. So if you want to be a great server, you would want to get into the power position just like this, where you have your left hand up, your eyes are looking up at the ball, and you look at the racket. It's in the 12 o'clock position. And at this point, I also want to say both of his sneakers are on the toes, right? So both his feet are on the toes. I see some people serving and they're on their heels. So if you're on your heels, sorry for pressing the table, I didn't realize. But when you're on your heels, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to get a lot of power. So you want to be on your toes for the serve. All right, and he's going to bring the racket back, look at that, into the 9 o'clock position. His elbow remains relatively in the same place. Now he's starting to take off the ground, and his hand will start to drop. Eyes still up at the ball. And right there, he achieves almost a perfect vertical on the racket head. There it is. So the racket head, if you want to think about it, started in a 6 o'clock position. It moved to a 3 o'clock. It went to a 12 o'clock, which is the power position or the trophy pose. It went to a 9 o'clock, and now it's at a 6 o'clock again. So it almost seems like it's made a full revolution. Yeah, it really made a full revolution on the racket. Now, this racket drop, it can be quite difficult for people if they're not used to doing it. And if you have a waiter serve where you're just standing with your body forward towards the court and going like this, it's going to be very difficult to achieve this. So you probably would want to really work on your fundamentals in order to get to this point. This is a little bit more advanced. It definitely takes a more advanced serve. You need to be in the continental grip. You need to have a racket drop. You need to have your body facing to the right so you can get that top spin, get that spin on the ball. Alrighty, so he's starting to come up to the ball, and if we stop it right about there, it really looks like he's going to just chop the ball with the side of his racket. That's the main difference between an ATP tour player's first and second serve and a club player. A lot of some club players know how to do this, but a lot of them are coming up in this way, like on a frying pan serve with their strings oriented right to the ball. And that doesn't allow for maximum power. What allows it for maximum power is by coming up in the continental position, on edge, and then pronating, as we're going to see here. All right, so that pronation occurs, and we can see that because his racket now is going to move where the thumb goes down. And there's a few things to point out here. So if we were to take a look at his hand, we would see his thumb pointed down. We'd see his elbow is up a la Pete Sampras. Notice that but his racket is coming out to the side. So it's almost like once you're in the trophy position and you make that racket drop, it's a left to right with the racket flaring out to the side. That allows the player to give spin onto the ball. And now his racket comes around to the left side of his body, and he jumps onto the left foot. If you watch this in regular motion, it almost looks like he's just going straight down like this. It doesn't look like he's going out and around. It happens so fast. You really need to start thinking about the second serve is not so much into the court, but in out to the side. Out if you're righty, out to the right side. If you're lefty, out to the left side. Okay, so he's fully into the court. I mean, he's getting his weight. He must have jumped at least 10 inches to a foot inside the baseline. I see a lot of players, when they try to serve first and second serves, they're not getting their weight forward. And this is a second serve. He's still swinging as fast as possible, and he's getting his weight into the ball. Now let's take a look at what happens with the ball. There's a lot of action. The ball hits the ground, jumps up. This player looks like he's pretty tall, might be 6'2", 6'3", and he's hitting this ball up right by the top of his head. That ball's really kicking up. Okay, let's take one more look at it, and then we'll look at his first serve to compare. Because I do want to point something else out about this. Okay, so one of the most important things you could do when you serve is to get that racket out to that 3 o'clock position right here. Okay? That's for both first and second serve. On his toes, right there. Now he's on his toes. All right, what I want to point out is that ball was out of the picture for quite a while. Typically, a ATP Tour Pro is going to toss the ball roughly twice the height of themselves. So Djokovic, I think he's like 6'2" or 6'3", so he's tossing that ball a little over 12 feet in the air. You don't have to toss the ball that high to have a good second serve. You can still toss it 4 or 5 feet over your head, could still work. as long as you have the time to get the racket drop and come up on the ball. Now, the main difference here between the first and second serve is if you look at the ball, when the ball's coming down, it's over his head. Okay, so he's striking that ball, and if we drew a line straight down, it's right over his head. The second serve is going to be more out to the right. Excuse me, the first serve. The first serve is going to be more out to the right. And there's another major difference. Now, we want the ball to be a little bit over the head so we have room to brush on it. If we're out too far to the right, we can't brush on it. It becomes like a slice. So a lot of people misinterpret a slice and a topspin second serve. Right, so the topspin second serve, the ball's a bit more over our head to the left. Slice, it's more out to the right. These are all for righties. So what I really want to point out is this is something that's really important. This could make all the difference in your second serve. I see a lot of people when they hit their second serve, they're hitting it as high as possible at the peak. The problem with that is you'll never be able to put spin on the ball. You want the ball to come down a little bit. So when you toss the ball, it goes up, wait for it to come down a little bit longer than you usually would, and allow your racket to catch it in about a 10 or 11 o'clock position so you can impart a little bit of spin on it, or a lot of spin. Okay. Also, his elbow is up. I pointed that out before. That's really important to have that high elbow, racket coming out to the left. All right, great. So we saw the common threads of the second serve. Let's just take a look at his first serve to see the difference. And that could help us. All right, here's his first serve. Everything seems like it looks the same. He has that 3 o'clock position. The left arm is straight up. He bends his knees. Now, what he doesn't do is he doesn't have his body. He has his body oriented slightly more towards the net. So his chest is facing a little bit more towards the net than it did before. He still does the racket drop, but notice that his chest begins to open up more, significantly more than on the second serve. This is his first serve, by the way, we're looking at. Okay, so the difference is, now look at the ball. If we drew a line straight down from the ball, it's going to be over his elbow. It's going to be over right here, or really his chest, not over his head, right? So the second serve would be here. The first serve would be here. So it's going to be a matter of 6 to 8 inches to the right for the first serve. And he's going to strike the ball up higher, as we're going to see. Okay, so he contacts the ball right up, almost maximum height, and there's no spin on the ball. He's hitting it flat. And look how open the body is. Right? His chest is still at a little bit of an angle. It's not completely onto the net right now. And another key is his racket doesn't flare out to the right. It actually comes forward. And you can see slightly to the right, but not nearly to the right as the second serve. Okay, so he has a different result. The ball hits, doesn't bounce as high. You can see that. It just has more power. All right, so those are the common threads of the second serve. I showed you the difference with the first serve. Guys, go out there and practice some of this. Put some of these threads into your game. The 3 most important threads of the second serve is to keep your body oriented to the right, allow a racket drop to happen, and when you come up on the ball, catch the ball not at maximum height, but about a 10 or 11 o'clock position. Those are the 3 most important aspects of the second serve, in my opinion. I hope this video helps. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I put out videos regularly, and I really just want to help you improve your tennis game. If you have any questions at all about the second serve, just leave them in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching.